The TRN Medusa. Let's talk about it. Now, this is a sample that was sent to me. I did not pay for it, and this was sent to me by Linsoul Audio, and I wanted to thank them for sending it out to me. This is the first product that they've sent out to me, so it's kind of an exciting moment for the channel. This is a solid IEM. It has a very unique design, a single dynamic driver with a V-shape tonality. Let's start by talking about the build quality of this IEM, and then we'll go a little bit more into the sound. Now, the shell of this IEM is very interesting. You'll notice it's almost a rounded shell, which I don't really have any problems with it, but it does kind of have a unique fit where it almost just kind of sits in your ear, but it fits really well. It has a nice nozzle where it fits ear tips well. It is kind of slippery, but it has a beautiful outside shell where you can see kind of this purple dynamic driver. It kind of looks like a sea urchin, or I don't know, like a sea anemone or something from the sea. Has that Medusa style eye, and so I like the design of this. It's unique, it's different, it's special. It's a really beautiful looking IEM. Now, this is a QDC style IEM with a clear shell, and it's overall a nice IEM. Now, there is a little protective film cover on this, on the right one, and I wanted to show you us lifting that off right now. Oh, so satisfying. I love pulling those off, so I had to show you guys. And yeah, they're nice shells. They're comfortable in ear. One cool thing about this cable is not only is it a pretty cable, it's kind of like a sandy gray sort of a cable, but it's easy to swap different terminations. It comes with a 2.5 and a 4.4. There's no real chin slide around this, but you know, it's a nice cable. It fits. It looks good in hand, and I have no problems with it. This does have a nice selection of tips, and it does have a nice case that comes along with this. This is the same case that's used on the Awful Magic one, and I want to say the Performer 5 as well. It's a nice case. So how do we describe this sound? This is a mild V, not overly aggressive, but it's not exactly what I would call a neutral IEM. So as we talk about it, I want you guys to kind of remember that this isn't for people that want something that's neutral, that's a little bit bland. So this is kind of a little bit of a colored, a little bit of a spiced IEM. And let's go ahead and start talking a little bit about some graphs and kind of go from there. Okay, the TRN Medusa graph. Let's look at this thing. It is a decent looking graph. Again, it's a strong V. We're going to look at some other Vs and talk about some other tunings as we just kind of talk about this IEM and kind of what it is. I do like V-style tunings. I'm not a huge fan of them. Sometimes I find some better V-style tunings, and I think this is a pretty fair V-style tuning for its price. It's not perfect, but it has some good qualities to it. It has nice bass. It has a little bit upper mids and treble region here that can be a little bit piercing for some, but it has good extension on this as well. So overall, it's not a bad set. It has some good things going on for it, but it's not perfect, and some things do sound a little bit off, or a little bit hazy, or a little bit too trebly, a little bit too shouty at some times. Let's talk about a few things, and if you look at, like, say, where we're normalizing this, we're currently normalizing this at 500, where my target line and this line are going to be matched up. But let's look at this and say if we normalize this at, say, 2,500, which isn't where we normally normalize. You can tell there it looks pretty good, but what it does is it kind of just scoops the mids there. So if you're sensitive to a region up here, it might bother you a little bit. This 2K peak sometimes is a little bit bothersome to me on certain tracks, but it's overall, it's not bad. It's just not my favorite tonality, because basically I have to tune it down to about this point, and so everything else will sound a little bit muffled, like the bass and the lower mids will sometimes come across thin, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Let's look at a few other graphs. Now, I have not looked at a whole lot of other graphs, but you look at this Medusa versus the Super Mix, and there's not a huge difference. Like, you'll notice a little bit more energy in that 2K, a little bit more energy in that 4 to 5K region, a little bit more 8K region energy. But overall, it does have a nice kind of bass and mids when you compare it to some of the Harman style sets. So it is pleasing. It is not a bad set, especially at its price and at its design for what it is. Let's look at a few others. Like, for me, I kind of think if I wanted to do something fun with some bass, I might even go, pull out the old Blonde BL03. I think that's a really good set with a little bit better bass and a little bit less shouty upper mids, if that's something that bothers you. And I know that's kind of a little bit more of a popular tuning, but sometimes people in their collections want different things. And if you're after a V set that's pretty inexpensive and that's beautiful and that has a nice cable and nice accessories and a nice little puck case, this is hard to deny. This is a really good set. So let's look at a few others. Another set that I want to look at is the Kiwi Ears Forteza. You'll notice that the Kiwi Ears Forteza and this have different like tonalities. For me, I kind of like the Medusa better just because like I'm a little bit sensitive to the 6K region. And so it just like, while this set was fun, it was a little bit more harshing and piercing. It is have a little bit better extension from 10 to 15K. So I kind of like the Medusa better than the Forteza. But I mean, I guess it just depends what you want. A little bit better sub bass on the Forteza, whereas the Medusa has a little bit more rolled off sub bass. So it kind of depends what you want. It's almost more like like a treble head set, almost more than a V set in a certain way. But I'm gonna call it kind of a slight B. Another one I want to look at is the Singolo. Now, when they asked me to review this, they actually were going to send out a Singolo, and the Singolo is actually on sale right now for $40. It is a very tiny shelled IEM. I did review this IEM not long ago. That's why I refused to, look at the Singolo as well. But you'll notice the Singolo fits my target a little bit better. I mean, the packaging on the Medusa is way better. It's like, it feels like $100 IEM, where the Critical Ears, Singolo, it just doesn't really feel that good. I think a lot of people were saving money for the Dusk, and the packaging and some of the critique of the Singolo kind of took hard. But I do think sonically, that fits my target, and I like the sound of it better, but I could see how people would prefer the Medusa, and I would find from a packaging standpoint the Medusa to be a much better value, because on sale, there should be some sales coming up here pretty soon. I would say that they trade blows, and depending on what you need, the Medusa is definitely more comfortable than the Singolo. But, some people might want a very small shelled IEM, and that's kind of something to note. Another something that's kind of close to this price range is the Hexa. I kind of prefer something with a little bit more subdued upper air and mids. That's kind of a little bit more my take, what I would kind of go with instead. And another thing to think about, I want to say TRN and CCA are the same brand. You guys can correct me in the comments, but they both use that kind of QDC style cable. And the CCA Trio is something that I would recommend just from a sonic perspective as well. That's a little bit cheaper. I think you might be able to score this for like 25 or lower. So I just kind of want to go through a few other options for you guys to consider and kind of go from there. All right, the TRN Medusa, let's rank it up. Solid C, 1-star rating, decent sonic quality, not my preferred tuning, but not a bad tuning, not like my least preferred. I'd much rather prefer a good V versus something that is a little bit different. And I think the TRN Medusa is something that, like, especially if you're trying to gift somebody who's maybe new, who's looking for kind of a fun set or something that's just new to the hobby. And if you're just new to the hobby thinking about a set like this, I think it's really cool to have a cable that you can swap out. And this style of cable is pretty awesome for the price, and it looks really nice, and it's really cool looking of an IEM. So I think there's a lot of value to be had for this, especially if you might be able to find this on sale. I think this is a really good IEM to consider for those that are looking for a fun set in the budget space. that does a lot of things really, really well. You know, I get some IEMs across my desk sometimes, and I don't really enjoy listening to them. But this one's been a lot of fun to listen to. It's good on podcast. It has a lot of good qualities to it, and I enjoy it from a fun perspective. Is it tonally perfect and exactly what I like compared to some of my other IEMs? No, but it's beautiful. It has a unique look and presentation. It fits in my ear well, and it's packaged exceedingly well. Like if the Singolo had been packaged the same way that the TRN Medusa had been, I think it would have sold a lot more, and you would have seen it, you know, on sale, on such deep sales right now. And I think that's really something to kind of consider, you know, like packaging, aesthetics can really matter for people, and fit on this is really good, and it's a beautiful little IEM to boot. It has a lot of great things about it, and it has a fun presentation that's not just like every other IEM out there. So it does get a recommendation for those that are looking for a fun set. But again, I think we've talked about a lot of other alternatives that might be a little bit closer to something that I personally might recommend. So that's something also to consider. I wanted to again thank Linsoul for sending this out. I really appreciate that. It's always fun to be able to hear IEMs and review them for you guys and show them to you when I normally wouldn't buy them or check them out myself. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Go watch another IEM video. It's done. That's the entire video. What more do you want?